The stars looked cold and distant through the window of the spaceship. Lisa Morgan stood alone in the observation deck, watching the alien station grow larger as they approached. Her heart was beating fast, but her face showed no fear. She had been a soldier for 10 years, and she had learned to hide her emotions well. The war had been going on for 3 years now. Earth and 23 alien races were fighting each other across the galaxy. Millions had died on both sides. The aliens thought humans were dangerous invaders. Humans thought the aliens wanted to destroy them. Both sides kept fighting because they were afraid of what would happen if they stopped. Admiral Peter Brooks had called Lisa to his office 2 days ago. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen too much death in this war. When Lisa walked in, he was looking at a star map on his desk. "I have a mission for you," he said without looking up. "It's probably going to get you killed." Lisa sat down and waited. She knew the Admiral well enough to know he wouldn't waste her time. "The alien leaders are meeting on Epsilon Reach Station in 2 days," Brooks continued. "All 23 species will have their top military commanders there. We received an invitation for someone to come and speak to them about peace." "That's good news," Lisa said carefully. Brooks finally looked at her. "They're letting us send one person. Unarmed. No security detail. No backup. You walk in there alone and try to convince beings who have been trying to kill us for 3 years to stop the war." Lisa understood immediately. It was a death trap. The aliens probably wanted to capture a high-ranking human officer for propaganda. Or maybe they wanted to kill someone important to show their strength. Either way, the person who went wouldn't be coming back. "I'll do it," Lisa said. Brooks stared at her. "You didn't even think about it." "I don't need to think about it, sir. If there's even a small chance this could end the war, someone has to try." The Admiral shook his head slowly. "You have a crew that needs you. The Destiny's Edge is one of our best ships because you're one of our best captains. And that's exactly why I should be the one to go," Lisa replied. "If we send someone senior who doesn't believe in peace, they'll see right through the lies. I actually think we can end this war. That makes me the right choice." Brooks was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "God help you, Captain Morgan. I hope you know what you're doing." Now, standing on her ship as it approached the alien station, Lisa wondered if she really did know what she was doing. Her second officer, Danny Wright, had spent the entire journey trying to talk her out of going. He was a good man, loyal and smart, but he couldn't see past his fear. "This is suicide," Danny said, standing beside her at the window. "They're going to kill you the moment you step off the shuttle." "Maybe," Lisa agreed. "But I don't think so. If they wanted to just kill a human, they could grab any prisoner. They invited us to talk. That means at least some of them are curious about what we have to say. Or they want to humiliate us in front of all their allies." Lisa turned to look at her friend. "Danny, how many people have died in this war?" "Millions. You know that. And how many more will die if it keeps going?" Danny's jaw tightened. "All of us. Eventually. The aliens have more ships, more worlds, more resources. We're losing." "Exactly. So what do we have to lose by trying this? If I die, the war continues the same as it would have anyway. But if I somehow manage to make them listen, if I can find even one crack in their certainty that we're monsters, then maybe we can stop all this death." The ship's computer announced they were beginning final approach. Lisa straightened her uniform. She wore simple diplomatic clothes with no armor or weapons. She looked vulnerable, and that was intentional. She wanted the aliens to see her as a person, not a threat. "I need you to do something for me," Lisa said to Danny. "If this goes wrong, if they kill me or capture me, don't let them use it as an excuse to escalate the war. Tell Admiral Brooks that I went there hoping for peace, and that humanity should keep hoping for peace even if I failed." Danny's eyes were wet with tears he was trying to hold back. "I'll tell him. But you're coming back, Captain. You have to." Lisa smiled, though she didn't feel the confidence she was trying to show. "I'll do my best." The shuttle bay was cold and echoing. Lisa's footsteps seemed too loud as she walked to the small diplomatic shuttle. The pilot was already on board, running pre-flight checks. He saluted when she entered. "Ready when you are, Captain," he said. Lisa strapped herself into the passenger seat and took a deep breath. Through the window, she could see her crew gathered in the observation area above the bay. They were watching her leave, probably thinking they would never see her again. She raised her hand in a wave, and they waved back. The shuttle lifted smoothly and glided out into space. The Destiny's Edge grew smaller behind them, while Epsilon Reach Station grew larger ahead. The station was massive, a ring of metal and lights that housed over 50,000 beings. Lisa had studied everything Earth's intelligence services knew about it, which wasn't much. As they got closer, Lisa could see alien ships docked all around the station. There were Corinthian warships with their distinctive red armor, Threndix vessels that looked like giant insects, Quellan ships that seemed. The air in the docking bay was cool and smelled strange. Lisa took a deep breath and stepped out of the shuttle. The Corinthian warriors immediately raised their weapons, pointing them directly at her chest. She stopped walking but kept her hands visible and empty at her sides. One of the warriors stepped forward. He was larger than the others, with darker red scales and more scars. His eyes were yellow with black slits, like a snake. When he spoke, a small device on his armor translated his words into English. "I am Commander Zakthar. You will follow me. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch anything. Any suspicious movement will result in your immediate death." Lisa nodded slowly. "I understand. Commander, I'm here to talk. Nothing more." Zakthar's eyes narrowed. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human." "Maybe both," Lisa said quietly. The warrior made a sound that might have been a laugh. He turned and began walking, and Lisa followed. The other warriors formed a box around her, weapons still ready. She was completely surrounded, completely vulnerable. If they wanted to kill her right now, there was nothing she could do to stop them. They walked through the station's corridors. Lisa had studied the layout, but being here in person was different. Everything was bigger than she expected. The ceilings were high enough for species much taller than humans. The doorways were wide enough for beings that moved on 6 legs or floated through the air. And everywhere she looked, there were aliens. Some she recognized from intelligence reports. Many she didn't. They all stopped what they were doing to watch her pass. She heard whispers and hisses and sounds her translator couldn't identify. She understood the tone, though. Hatred, curiosity, contempt. A group of Threndix soldiers watched her from a side corridor. They looked like giant praying mantises, with sharp claws and compound eyes. One of them made a clicking sound, and her translator said, "The human walks to its death." Lisa kept her eyes forward and kept walking. Showing fear would only make things worse. These beings were predators, evolved to hunt and kill. They would see weakness as an invitation. They passed through a market area where traders from dozens of species sold goods. The noise was incredible, a mixture of voices and music and mechanical sounds. But as Lisa walked through, the noise died down. Beings turned to stare. Some moved away quickly. Others moved closer, as if they wanted a better look at the human. A small creature, something that looked like a floating ball of fur with tentacles, drifted too close. One of Lisa's guards hissed at it, and it fled quickly. Lisa wondered if it had been curious or hostile. She would never know. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a large set of doors. They were made of some kind of dark metal covered in symbols Lisa couldn't read. 2 more guards stood beside the doors, even larger than the ones escorting her. They carried weapons that looked like they could cut through a spaceship's hull. Zakthar stopped and turned to face Lisa. "Beyond these doors is the council chamber. The supreme commanders of all 23 coalition species are waiting. You will stand at the center podium and speak when acknowledged. You will answer all questions honestly. If you lie, we will know, and you will die. If you threaten anyone, you will die. If you do anything except talk, you will die. Do you understand? I understand, Lisa said. Her mouth was dry, but her voice was steady. Why did you come here? Zakthar asked suddenly. You must know. This is probably a trap. Lisa looked up at the massive warrior. Because someone had to try. Too many people have died already. If there's any chance to stop this war, I had to take it. Zakthar studied her for a long moment. Then he made that sound again that might have been a laugh. You humans are strange creatures. Weak and soft. But you refuse to surrender. We cannot understand it. Maybe that's the problem, Lisa said. Maybe if we understood each other better, we wouldn't be fighting. The warrior didn't respond. He turned and signaled to the door guards. They pressed buttons on the wall, and the doors began to open with a deep, grinding sound. The council chamber was breathtaking. It was a huge circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars. 23 chairs were arranged in a semicircle, and behind each chair stood more guards and advisors. The chairs themselves were designed for different body types. Some were normal seats. Others were platforms for beings that floated. One looked like a pool of liquid, and in those chairs sat the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy. Lisa recognized Supreme Commander Vex Thor immediately. He was enormous, even for a Corinthian, with crimson scales that gleamed in the light. His eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. Next to him sat General Cora of the Threndics. Her compound eyes tracked every tiny movement Lisa made. On Vex Thor's other side was Admiral Nimra of the Quellan, whose gaseous body swirled inside a force field shaped like a person. Lisa saw the leaders of the Harnathi Empire, the Vortham Consensus, the Silnari Collective, and 20 other species she had only encountered in battle. Every single one of them looked at her with expressions ranging from hatred to curiosity. In the center of the room was a small podium. That was where she would stand. That was where she would make her case, for peace or die trying. Zakthar led her forward. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her. The air felt thick, heavy, with tension and anticipation. She reached the podium and stopped. Zakthar and the other guards moved back, leaving her alone in the center of the room. Lisa placed her hands on the podium to steady herself, and looked up at the assembled commanders. Supreme Commander Vex Thor leaned forward in his chair. Lisa's voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger as she spoke. She knew she had to be honest, completely honest, or they would see through any deception. Honorable members of the Galactic Coalition, she began, I stand before you not as an enemy, but as someone who has seen the cost of this war. I've watched my friends die. I've given orders that sent good people to their deaths. I've seen entire cities burn. And I know that each of you has seen the same things from your side. You speak of suffering, General Cora interrupted, her clicking voice sharp through the translator. But it was humanity that invaded our space. It was your ships that violated our borders. It was your weapons that fired first. Lisa nodded slowly. And that's the story you've been told. Just as my people have been told that you destroyed our unarmed survey ships without warning. Both stories are true from a certain point of view, and both are incomplete. She pulled out her data tablet and projected a star map into the air above the podium. This is where first contact happened 3 years ago. Our colony ship Unity arrived in a system we called 428 Gamma. We had scanned it from far away and found no signs of intelligent life. No radio signals. No satellites. No cities. By our rules, the system was available for colonization. The map zoomed in on a blue and green planet. We landed and started building a settlement. 3 months later, a Corinthian patrol arrived and said we were trespassing. Our captain tried to explain and asked to negotiate. The Corinthian commander opened fire without saying anything else. Vex Thor's scales rippled, a sign he was agitated. That system belonged to my people for 200 years. Your scan was not good enough. You're right, Lisa said, and several council members looked surprised. Our scanning technology couldn't detect your claim markers. We had no way to know the system was claimed because we didn't understand how you marked territory. And your commander had no way to know we weren't invaders because our species had never met before. She paused, letting them think about that. First contact between humans and the Coalition wasn't a peaceful meeting. It was a battle. Both sides assumed the worst because we had no way to understand each other. Admiral Nimra pulsed with colors that meant skepticism. You call this a misunderstanding? Your species attacked 14 Coalition worlds after that. Was that also a mistake? Ezer, Lisa showed more data on her tablet. After the Unity was destroyed with all 400 colonists on board, Earth demanded answers. We sent ships to make contact peacefully. 3 were destroyed before they could even send messages. The 4th, the Olive Branch, managed to transmit a request for dialogue before you fired on it too. The projection showed communication logs with dates and verification codes. Your response was a declaration that humanity was a disease that needed to be removed from the galaxy. The Coalition vote to declare war on Earth was unanimous. Your combined fleet entered human space 6 months after first contact. Cora's mandibles clicked angrily. Because your species showed the same patterns as other aggressive civilizations we've encountered. We acted to protect ourselves. And in doing so, you made humanity believe our worst fear was true, Lisa said firmly. That we were alone in a hostile galaxy, surrounded by enemies who would kill us just for existing. So we fought back. We fought with everything we had, because we thought it was a fight for survival. She looked around at all the faces, human and alien alike. Here's what both sides need to understand. We were all wrong. Not about what happened, but about why it happened. You thought we were conquerors because your history taught you to fear expansion. We thought you were trying to commit genocide because your actions seemed to prove it. Both sides were looking at each other through fear and assumption. General Thorvik of the Harnathi Empire spoke for the first time. He was a quadruped covered in natural armor plates. Your words sound nice, human, but they change nothing. Thousands of my warriors are dead because of your people, and thousands of mine are dead because of yours, Lisa said quietly. General, I commanded the defense when your fleet attacked New Seattle. I watched a city of 2 million people burn from orbit. I gave the order to launch the counterattack that destroyed your flagship and killed 8,000 Harnathi soldiers. I carry those deaths with me every single day. The chamber went silent. Lisa continued. And now, there were tears running down her face. She didn't try to hide them. I remember their names. Captain Kevin Brooks stayed at his gun. The council chamber erupted. Voices in 24 languages filled the air as council members argued with each other. Some were shouting. Others were making sounds Lisa's translator couldn't interpret. The guards moved closer to her, hands on their weapons, clearly expecting violence. Supreme Commander Vexus Thor raised one massive hand, and slowly the noise died down. His eyes studied Lisa with an intensity that made her feel like he could see into her soul. You speak well, Commander Morgan, he said slowly. But words are easy. Actions are what matter. The Corinthian people have a saying, truth is proven by what you do, not what you say. How do you propose we end this war? What specific steps would humanity take? Our question. Lisa had been waiting for this question. She had thought about it for days. Immediate ceasefire, on all fronts, watched by neutral observers. Human forces, withdraw from all contested systems, back to where we were, before the war. Release all prisoners, open formal diplomatic relations with full embassy exchanges, and we give coalition inspection teams complete access to human territory to verify we're not a threat. Councillor Rithal of the Vortham Consensus spoke in tones like bells chiming. His crystalline body caught the light in beautiful patterns. You offer surrender terms. No, Lisa corrected firmly. I offer peace terms. Surrender would mean humanity accepts being conquered. Peace means we both accept that we can exist together. In exchange for our withdrawal and transparency, we ask the same from the coalition. Ceasefire, withdrawal, prisoner release, and a guarantee that human space will be recognized and respected. Admiral Nimra pulsed deep purple. And if we refuse? If we decide that eliminating humanity is safer? Lisa met his gaze without blinking. Then I die here. And the war continues until one or both sides are destroyed. But I don't think that's what you want. I've studied each of your cultures. The Corinthians value honor and wisdom. The Threndics prize logic. The Quellan seek harmony. The Harnathi protect their families above all. She gestured to include everyone. None of your values are served by endless war. This conflict has already cost too much. I believe that if we can find the courage to stop fighting long enough to really talk, we'll find we have more in common than we thought. General Cora's mandibles moved thoughtfully. The data about first contact. You'll share everything? Unedited? A. Crom. A. Crom. A. Crom. Yes. And I ask you to do the same. Let neutral parties look at evidence from both sides and figure out what really happened. Let's replace assumptions with facts. Vex Thor stood up. His massive body dominated the room. You ask us to trust a species we've been fighting for 3 years. To trust. This isn't a trick to buy time while you rebuild your forces. Lisa stood too, though she barely came up to his chest. I ask you to trust your own experience. In 3 years, has humanity ever used biological weapons? Even though we could have? Have we deliberately targeted civilians? Or have we focused on military targets? Have we ever refused prisoner exchanges or broken ceasefire agreements? She saw several council members shifting uncomfortably. She pressed on. Check your records. You'll see that while humans have fought hard, we've fought with honor. We've avoided certain tactics even when they might have helped us win. Because despite what you think, we value life. All life. Not just human life. More nice words, Thorvik growled. But you don't address the colonies you built in our systems. Because we didn't know they were yours, Lisa said firmly. And now we do. We're willing to move every colonist from disputed systems as part of peace. It will be hard and expensive, but we'll do it to prove we mean what we say. All we ask is that you acknowledge we have a right to exist here, that we can expand into truly empty space. Counselor Vespra of the Silnari Collective spoke. She looked like floating tentacles made of light. The human makes points worth considering. We entered this war believing we faced a threat to all civilized species. If we were wrong, we owe it to our dead to at least investigate peace. More debate followed. Lisa answered every question, addressed every concern. When they accused her, she didn't get angry. When they challenged her, she stayed calm. She spoke about human culture, human fears, human dreams. She shared stories of individual people affected by the war. Slowly, very slowly. The tone began to ours. Crawled by in the guest quarters. Lisa tried to rest but couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the council meeting, analyzing every word she had said, every reaction she had seen. Had she said enough? Had she said too much? Had she somehow made things worse instead of better? She paced the small room. 5 steps to the window. Turn. 5 steps to the door. Turn. Repeat. The guards outside never moved or spoke. She was completely alone with her thoughts and fears. Lisa thought about her childhood on Earth, before humanity had ever met another intelligent species. She remembered looking up at the stars and dreaming about what was out there. In her imagination, she had pictured friendly aliens, exciting adventures, peaceful exploration. The reality had been so different. War, death, fear. But maybe it didn't have to stay that way. Maybe this was the turning point. Or maybe she was about to die. And the war would continue until both sides destroyed each other. She sat on the bed and closed her eyes. Her mother's face appeared in her memory. Her mother had died 2 years ago when the Threndix attacked the Mars colonies. Lisa had been in deep space when it happened, unable to say goodbye. The message had reached her 3 days after the funeral. How many others had similar stories? How many families torn apart by this war? How many children who would grow up without parents? How many parents burying children? The door opened suddenly. Lisa jumped to her feet. Commander Zakhtar stood there, his face unreadable. The council has decided. Come with me. Lisa's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She followed Zakhtar out of the room. The walk back to the council chamber felt longer than before. Every step felt heavy. She tried to read the warrior's body language, but his scales gave nothing away. They passed other aliens in the corridors. Some watched her with obvious curiosity. Others looked away quickly. One small creature made a sound that might have been sympathetic. Lisa wasn't sure. The council chamber doors opened. Inside, all 23 council members stood in formal positions. The room felt different now, though Lisa couldn't say exactly how. The tension was still there, but it felt different, less hostile, more uncertain. Supreme Commander Vex Thor stepped forward. Lisa prepared herself for whatever came next. She had done everything she could. Now it was out of her hands. Commander Lisa Morgan of Earth, Vex Thor began. His voice was formal and serious. The Council has considered your words and examined the evidence you presented. We have also reviewed our own records of this war with fresh perspective, looking for truth beneath our assumptions. He paused. Lisa held her breath. We find merit in your claims. First contact was indeed a terrible misunderstanding, made worse by poor communication and mutual fear. The war that followed was not inevitable. It was the result of both sides seeing threats where there were only differences. Vex Thor's expression softened slightly. Therefore, the Galactic Coalition votes to accept your proposal for peace negotiations. We agree to an immediate ceasefire, verified by neutral observers from the independent trading worlds. We agree to prisoner exchanges and the establishment of formal diplomatic channels. And we agree to work with humanity to establish clear boundaries and protocols for future expansion by all species. Relief flooded through Lisa so powerfully that her knees almost buckled. She gripped the podium to stay upright. For a moment, she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. Thank you, Supreme Commander. She finally managed. On behalf of humanity, I accept these terms. I pledge to work tirelessly to ensure lasting peace between our peoples. General Cora stepped forward. Understand, Commander Morgan. This is only the beginning. Building trust after 3 years of war will not be easy. There will be those on both sides who oppose peace, who want revenge. I know, Lisa said. But I also know it's possible. Because I walked into this room surrounded by enemies. And I'm walking out, having found understanding. If we can do that here, there's hope for everyone. Admiral Nimra pulsed golden light. You showed courage coming here alone, human. You showed wisdom seeking understanding rather than victory. These are qualities we respect. One by one, the council members approached Lisa. Some offered formal acknowledgments. Others made gestures of respect in their various cultural traditions. Some didn't approach at all, clearly still uncertain about this decision. Lisa understood. Peace was a risk for them too. Vex Thor was the last to approach. Up close, he was even more massive, towering over her. But his eyes were different now. Less hostile, almost sad. My brother died believing humanity was evil, the Corinthian commander said quietly. I think he would have changed his mind if he had met you, Commander Morgan. You have honored his memory and the memory of all our fallen by seeking an end to the killing. Lisa felt tears building but didn't try to stop them. Thank you. I promise, we will make this peace worthy of their sacrifice. Zakthar escorted her back to the docking bay, but this time the walk felt different. The guards weren't pointing weapons at her anymore. Other aliens they passed still stared, but now some of them nodded respectfully. At the shuttle, Zakthar stopped and looked down at Lisa. I did not think you would succeed. I thought we would be sending your body back to your people. I wasn't sure either, Lisa admitted. The Destiny's Edge filled the window as the shuttle approached. Lisa could see her crew gathered in the observation deck, watching anxiously. She wondered what they would think when they heard the news. Would they believe it? Would they celebrate? Would they be angry that she had risked her life? The shuttle docked with a gentle thump. Lisa stood up, suddenly nervous. She had faced down 23 hostile alien commanders without wavering, but now her hands were shaking. This was her crew, her family. She owed them an explanation for what she had done. The airlock opened. Lieutenant Danny Wright was there, his face pale with worry. Behind him stood the entire senior staff: Navigation Officer Helen Burke, Chief Engineer Marcus Cole, Medical Officer Paul Anderson, Security Chief Nicole Davis. All of them, looking at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "Captain," Danny said, his voice barely above a whisper. The war is ending," Lisa said clearly, loudly enough for everyone to hear. The coalition agreed to peace negotiations. Immediate ceasefire across all fronts. Prisoner exchanges. Diplomatic relations. We did it. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if they couldn't process what they were hearing. Then Helen started crying. Marcus let out a whoop of joy. Nicole grabbed Paul in a hug. And Danny, serious Danny, who never showed emotion, pulled Lisa into an embrace that lifted her off her feet. "You crazy, brilliant, impossible woman," he said, laughing and crying at the same time. The celebration spread through the ship like wildfire. Within minutes, every crew member knew. The ship's corridors filled with laughter and tears and cheering. People who had been fighting for 3 years, who had lost friends and family, who had lived with the constant fear of death, suddenly allowed themselves to hope. Lisa made her way to the bridge. She needed to transmit the news to Earth, to Admiral Brooks and the High Command. This was too important to delay even a moment. The bridge crew snapped to attention when she entered, but she waved them to their stations. "At ease. Someone get me a direct line to Earth High Command. Maximum priority." The communications officer's hands flew over his console. "Channel open, Captain. Admiral Brooks is standing by." 3. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. He looked older than Lisa remembered, worn down by the weight of command during wartime. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept in days. "Captain Morgan," he said, "report." "Sir, the Galactic Coalition has accepted our peace proposal. All 23 member species voted in favor. They're agreeing to an immediate ceasefire, prisoner exchanges, and formal peace negotiations." Brooks stared at her. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. For a long moment, he just sat there, in stunned silence. "Sir?" Lisa said carefully. "Say that again," Brooks said hoarsely. "I need to hear it again." "The war is ending, sir. We won. Not through force, but through understanding." They listened. The Admiral put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. Lisa realized he was crying. This tough old warrior who had sent thousands to their deaths, who had borne the weight of humanity's survival on his shoulders. "How?" he finally asked. "How did you convince them?" Lisa thought about her answer. "I told them the truth, sir. I told them that we're all afraid, that we've all lost people we love, and that we all want the same thing: peace, a future. I didn't try to make us look perfect or them look evil. I just showed them that we're all people, regardless of what we look like." Brooks wiped his eyes. "I'm putting you in for the Medal of Honor, and probably a dozen other commendations. You saved billions of lives today, Captain. I didn't do it alone, sir. It took both sides being willing to listen. The coalition commanders showed courage too, choosing peace when they could have chosen revenge. I need you to come to Earth immediately, Brooks said. We need to form a negotiating team, establish protocols, coordinate the ceasefire. This is just the beginning. Understood, sir. We'll set course immediately. The transmission ended. Lisa turned to her navigation officer. Helen, plot a course for Earth. Best speed. Aye, Captain. The Destiny's Edge turned toward home. Around them, space looked the same as it always had. Stars and darkness. But everything felt different now. The galaxy was no longer just a battlefield. It was becoming something else. Something hopeful. Lisa sat in her command chair and looked at her crew. These people had followed her into impossible situations. They had trusted her judgment, even when it seemed crazy. They deserved to know what came next. Listen up, she said. And the bridge went quiet. The war ending doesn't mean our work is done. Building peace is going to be harder than fighting ever was. There will be people on both sides who don't want this, who want revenge, who prefer the certainty of war to the uncertainty of peace. She stood up and looked each crew member in the eye. We're going to face hostility from our own people. Some will call us traitors for negotiating with the enemy. Some will say we should have kept fighting until we achieved total victory, and we're going to have to convince them that this is the right path. We're with you, Captain, Danny said firmly. All the way. The others nodded in agreement. Nicole spoke up. You walked into a room full of enemies alone and came out with peace. If you can do that, we can handle anything. Lisa smiled. Thank you. All of you. I couldn't ask for a better crew. The journey to Earth took 3 days. During that time, news of the peace agreement spread across human space. The reaction was mixed. Many celebrated, crying with relief that the war was finally ending. But others were angry, demanding that humanity continue fighting until the aliens were defeated completely. There were protests at government buildings. Military officers resigned in protest. Some colonies refused to accept the ceasefire. Lisa watched the news feeds and felt her heart sink. She had known this would be difficult. But seeing the division among her own people was painful. Admiral Brooks kept her updated on the negotiations. The coalition was having similar problems. Some species accepted the peace immediately. Others were threatening to leave the coalition rather than make peace with humanity. It was messy and complicated, and nothing like the clear victory people wanted. On the 3rd day, Earth came into view. The blue and white marble that was humanity's home. Lisa had been away for 2 years, fighting in the outer colonies. Seeing it now made her throat tight with emotion. The Destiny's Edge entered orbit and received docking clearance at the primary military station. A shuttle was waiting to take Lisa to the surface, to the headquarters, where the peace negotiations would take place. She said goodbye to her crew. I don't know when I'll be back, she told them. This could take months. Nunder, under, Imani Tazy. We'll be here when you need us, Captain, Danny assured her. The shuttle took her down to Earth, landing at a military base outside Washington. A car was waiting to take her to the negotiating site, a secure facility that had been set up specifically for this purpose. Inside, she found a chaos of activity. Diplomats, military officers, scientists, linguists, all working frantically to prepare for the coalition delegation's arrival. Admiral Brooks met her at the entrance. The coalition representatives will be here in 6 hours, he said. We need you in the briefing room. The negotiating team needs to hear everything about your meeting with the council. 1. Lisa spent the next hours answering questions, explaining everything that had happened on Epsilon Reach Station. She described each council member, their concerns, their reactions. She explained what had worked and what hadn't in her arguments. Then the coalition delegation arrived. Supreme Commander Vex's Thor led them, along with representatives from each of the 23 species. They looked uncomfortable on Earth, surrounded by humans, just as Lisa had been uncomfortable on their station. The first negotiating session was tense. Both sides were wary, suspicious. But Lisa noticed something important. Vex Thor and the other coalition leaders were trying. They were making an effort to understand human perspectives, just as she had made an effort to understand theirs. Slowly, carefully, they began to work out the details. Ceasefire verification procedures, prisoner exchange protocols, border definitions. It was tedious, exhausting work, but it was happening. On the 5th day of negotiations, during a break, Vex Thor approached Lisa privately. He said, "What you did on Epsilon Reach, walking in alone to face us, showed courage. It inspired the Council to take a risk on peace. Without you, we would still be fighting." "It wasn't just me," Lisa said. "You and the other commanders took an equal risk believing me. That took courage too." The Corinthian nodded slowly. "Perhaps. But I think this is what your species does best. You find hope in impossible places. You refuse to accept that things cannot change. It is frustrating and admirable in equal measure." Lisa laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one." The negotiations continued for weeks. Slowly, an agreement took shape. Human colonies in disputed territory would be relocated. Coalition forces would withdraw from human space. Prisoners would be exchanged. Embassies would be established. Trade agreements would be negotiated. And most importantly, both sides agreed to establish a joint council for resolving future disputes peacefully. Never again would a misunderstanding lead to war. Never again would fear and assumption replace communication. 3 months after Lisa had walked into the council chamber on Epsilon Reach, she stood in the same room where the negotiations had taken place. Representatives from Earth and all 23 coalition species had gathered for the signing of the formal peace treaty. The document was hundreds of pages long, written in 24 languages. It covered everything from border definitions to cultural exchange programs. It wasn't perfect. Both sides had made compromises they weren't entirely happy with. But it was peace. One by one, the representatives signed. When it was Lisa's turn, her hand trembled slightly as she wrote her name. She thought about Greg Palmer and all the others who had died in the war. She hoped they would have approved of what she had done. After the signing, there was a reception. Humans and aliens mingled awkwardly, trying to find common ground. Lisa watched Admiral Nimra attempting to explain Quellan music to a human diplomat. She saw General Thorvik sharing pictures of his new bondmate with a group of fascinated humans. Vex Thor found her again. "What will you do now, Commander Morgan?" "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "I'm a soldier. I've spent my entire adult life preparing for and fighting in war. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in peacetime." "Learn," Vex Thor suggested. "As we all must learn. Learn about each other. Learn to build instead of destroy. Learn to hope instead of fear." Lisa smiled. "That sounds like a good plan." She looked around the room at humans and aliens talking, laughing, beginning to understand each other. It wasn't perfect. There would be setbacks and challenges. Some people would never accept the peace, but it was a start. She had entered a room of enemies and left with everyone alive. More than that, she had left with the hope of friendship. And sometimes, hope was the most powerful weapon of all. The galaxy was still vast and mysterious. But it was no longer quite so hostile. Humanity had found its place among the stars. Not through conquest, but through the courage to seek understanding. And that, Lisa thought, was the most human thing they could have done. "You are small and weak by our standards," the warrior continued. "But you have strength of a different kind. The strength to hope when hope seems foolish. That is admirable." Lisa smiled. "Maybe That's the most human thing about us. We keep hoping even when we shouldn't. She climbed into the shuttle. Through the window, she watched Zakthar and the other Corinthians step back. The pilot, who had been waiting anxiously, turned to her with wide eyes. "Captain, did it work?" "It worked," Lisa said, and suddenly she was laughing and crying at the same time. "The war is ending. We're going home." The shuttle lifted off and glided back toward the Destiny's Edge. Lisa watched the alien station shrink behind them, hardly believing what had just happened. She had been prepared to die on that station. Instead, she was bringing back the most important news in human history: change. Questions became less hostile and more genuinely curious. Council members who had been certain began to show doubt. The possibility of peace, once unthinkable, began to feel almost real. Hours passed. Lisa's legs were tired from standing, but she didn't complain. Her throat was dry from talking, but she kept answering questions. This was too important to let physical discomfort stop her. Finally, as the station's artificial day was ending, Vexthor called for a break. "The council will discuss this in private. Commander Morgan, you will be taken to guest quarters while we decide." Lisa bowed respectfully. "Thank you for listening, Honorable Council. Whatever you decide, know that I told you the truth, as I understand it." The guest quarters were nice but clearly designed to keep her contained. Guards stood outside her door. The windows only showed the station's interior walls. Lisa sat on the bed, suddenly exhausted now that the adrenaline was fading. She thought about Lieutenant Danny Wright and her crew, waiting anxiously for news. She thought about Admiral Brooks, who had trusted her with this impossible task. She thought about all the people, human and alien, whose lives depended on what the council decided. Then, when the building was collapsing around him, Dr. Amy Sanders refused to evacuate the hospital and died treating wounded civilians. Lieutenant Greg Palmer was 23 years old. He wrote poetry. He died in my arms, asking me to tell his mother he loved her. The tears fell freely now, but Lisa's voice didn't waver. "I am haunted by the people I couldn't save, and I know each of you carries the same burden. General Thorvik, you lost your bondmate in that battle. Admiral Nimra, 3 of your children died at Vega Station. Commander Vexthor, your brother was killed defending Epsilon Prime." Vexthor's eyes went wide. "How dare you speak of my brother?" "I dare to say that his death was a tragedy," Lisa said. "Just like the deaths of my people were tragedies. I dare to suggest that we honor all of them by ending this war, before we create more names for the lists of the dead." She stepped back from the podium, forgetting about her prepared presentation. "I didn't come here with fancy political arguments. I came to tell you the truth, as I see it. This war started because of misunderstanding and fear, and it will destroy all of us if we let it continue. Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We just want to exist in it, to find our place among the stars. And I believe that if we had met differently, we could have been friends instead of enemies." Spoke. His voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. The translator rendered his words in flat, emotionless English. "Lisa Morgan of Earth, you requested this meeting claiming you could offer a path to peace. We allowed you to come because we were curious what possible justification your species could offer for your aggression. You stand now before the combined might of 23 civilizations. We could kill you with a thought. We could destroy your entire species if we chose to commit our full strength to the task." He paused, and the silence was absolute. "Speak, human. Tell us why we should not simply end this war by ending you. Tell us why your species deserves to exist in our galaxy, and know that your words here will determine whether you leave this station alive or whether your body is sent back to Earth as a message." Lisa took a deep breath. This was it, the moment everything depended on. She looked at each council member in turn, meeting their eyes where appropriate for their species. Then she began to speak, ed to float without any visible engines. Ships from species she had only seen in combat, and some she had never seen at all. The pilot's voice cracked with tension. Captain, we're being hailed by station control. They're directing us to docking bay 7. There's an armed escort waiting. Acknowledged, Lisa said calmly. Take us in. Her hands were shaking slightly, so she folded them in her lap where the pilot couldn't see. She thought about all the people who were counting on her, the families who had lost loved ones in the war, the soldiers still fighting on distant worlds, the children who had grown up, knowing nothing but war and fear. She thought about a young lieutenant named Greg Palmer, who had died in her arms during the Battle of New Seattle. He had been 23 years old and wrote poetry in his spare time. His last words were asking her to tell his mother he loved her. Lisa had delivered that message personally, and she still remembered the sound of his mother's crying. If she could prevent even one more mother from receiving that kind of news, then walking into this trap would be worth it. The shuttle touched down with a gentle bump. Through the window, Lisa could see them. Corinthian warriors, 7 feet tall, with scaled skin and massive weapons. There were at least a dozen of them surrounding the landing pad. They looked ready for a fight. Lisa stood up and walked to the shuttle door. The pilot looked at her with obvious fear. Good luck, Captain, he whispered. Thank you, Lisa replied. Then she pressed the button, and the door opened.